happy Friday. So, Stephanie, I think we're fucked.
Oh, great. This is like I am not in a good mood.
Well, let me help you out and make your mood even worse. So, this morning's breaking news is that the Obamas have officially endorsed Kamala as the Democratic nominee for the presidency. So, I want to play this video clip that was released on Kamala's YouTube channel earlier this morning. And just to give you guys some context, it's clearly like staged. The video itself, like they wanted to play a video of her getting this call because she's like walking out of somewhere and over to her car and she's on the phone laughing. And then you hear the Obamas on the other end. So here's the call.
Hello. Hi. Oh, you're both together. Oh, it's good to hear you both. I, I can't have this phone call without saying to my girl Kamala, I am proud of you. This is going to be historic.
We called to say Michelle and I couldn't be prouder to endorse you and to do everything we can to get you through this election and into the Oval Office.
Oh my goodness. Michelle, Brock, this means so much to me. I am looking forward to doing this with the two of you, Doug and I both, and getting out there, being on the road. But most of all, I just want to tell you the words you have spoken and the friendship that you have given over all these years mean more than I can express. So thank you both. It means so much. And we're gonna have some fun with this too, aren't we?
Okay. Does that not make you want to throw up?
Everything she says is so cringy. It's so scripted. And like, my God, could they have waited any longer to support her? Like, oh, we couldn't be prouder of you. That's why we left you hanging, all this time and just now are finally deciding to endorse you. Like, give me a break.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the narrative because I was reading about this in Politico earlier today when that's who first, I think, reported this whole thing with the phone call. But what was not in that clip that was on the call was Obama telling Kamala that, Democrats are going to be the underdog and she's going to have to earn the trust of voters across the country. And he said, quote, "We're absolutely confident that you're going to be able to make that happen. And I just want to make sure that, we're sending a message out to not just Democrats, but every American, Democrat, Republican, independent, and especially young people, that the stakes are high. And your vision for a generous, inclusive, positive, community-minded, responsible, lawful America, that's exactly what we need. So I know you're going to be working hard, but you're going to have a whole bunch of folks working alongside you," end quote.
A lawful America? Like, are you kidding me? It has been anything but that under the Biden-Harris administration. And I'm sorry, but they want to earn the trust of the voters by not allowing the voters to cast a single vote for her. Like, give me a break. The whole thing is so absurd. She has had 4 years to make a good impression and earn our trust. And I can't think of a single damn thing she's accomplished. And it's like, with her, we've had, we're going to have 4 more years of inflation, illegal migrants flooding the country with child trafficking and fentanyl, crime, and probably way worse than we've even seen because we have to remember she is a lot more left than Biden. So just imagine what she's going to do. And like, not just the lack of accomplishment, but her personality is a real problem. She's just not likable. And like I said, like everything she does is super cringy and she can't seem to control her wild cackles. So, I mean, I think it's going to be an uphill battle.
I don't know, like this scares me a little bit because the left in their, hatred of Trump and how deeply so many of them are embedded in, Trump derangement syndrome, they're so easily swayed by rhetoric. And Obama just delivered that. Like, notice the words he used: generous, inclusive, positive, community minded, responsible, lawful. Like, it sounds really good, right? This isn't the violence and the hate speech that Biden was spewing. Like, they've completely changed tactics. But we have to keep in mind that their mission and agenda is the same. So, like, don't be fooled by the words. Like, think about it. It's been less than a week into Kamala's campaign, and she's instantly gone from being this literally inconsequential, like, giggling side piece for Biden to suddenly being praised by the left as the savior of democracy. And I was listening to an interview that Tucker did with Ben Carson, And Carson compared the way the media is suddenly portraying Kamala to her being like a modern day Martin Luther King. And he's right, because that's what the MSM is doing. And that's what the Democrat Party is doing. They have conveniently forgotten that she has been a total joke and a useless sidekick to Biden for the past 4 years. And now they're even trying to erase her history.
Yeah, they're literally wiping the internet clean of her past. So I was on TikTok, of course, and there was this guy that was doing all these chat GPT prompts where he was asking about Kamala. And he asked ChatGPT to cite news articles discussing Kamala's record of sentencing thousands of people to prison for marijuana possession. And ChatGPT gave information and said, like, yes, like this is when it happened, blah, blah, blah. But the website links to the various news articles were erased. Like when you click on them, it says error 404 page not found. So they're literally going back and deleting news articles that discuss her, horrendous history. And even though they're doing that though, like there's still plenty out there because we have to remember like she was the most extreme left senator. And that's according to the Democrat primary debate monitor, which or moderator, which Trump put in his most recent ad. And then the other thing he put in the latest ad was Kamala, like herself, saying that we need to eliminate ICE, which to remind everyone, that's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So that's not a good look. And it sure as hell didn't age too well now that we have this massive crisis in our country with illegal migrants. So, I mean, they're going to try and use word salads and erase the internet, but it doesn't change the fact that she has nothing to stand for. She has no history of policies that people can get behind, and you just can't fake that.
I agree with you, but there's so much shady shit being done by the left. And now that Obama has officially endorsed her, I believe this is the game plan. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to pull any big surprises at the DNC at this point. And the reason I think that is because of what happened on Wednesday during the Convention Rules Committee meeting. Because on Wednesday, the DNC approved their virtual roll call procedure to select the presidential nominee before the convention. And so Jamie Harrison posted on X yesterday, he said, quote, "Today, the Convention Rules Committee, in partnership with the DNC and the DNCC, voted to move forward with an open, transparent, and expedited nominating process to select a presidential nominee. The process voted and adopted today is designed to select the presidential nominee and allow that presidential nominee to vet and select a vice presidential nominee in advance of state access ballot deadlines," end quote. Now, reportedly, they're doing this to enable the selection of a nominee before Ohio's August 7th ballot access deadline. But that's bullshit because I was reading an article in Tag 24 and they were talking about how Ohio already passed legislation extending the deadline after, Biden was no longer on the ticket. And Ohio officials have repeatedly said that they would adapt the process to make sure that whoever the nominated Democrat is gets on the ticket after the DNC. So even though this convention takes place August 19th through 22nd, as a result of this virtual roll call process being implemented, candidates who want to, run for nomination, they now only have until 6 p.m. on July 27th, which is tomorrow, to declare their intention to run and file it with the convention secretary. Candidates will then have until Tuesday, July 30th, to obtain signatures of support from at least 300 delegates. And then electronic voting can take place as early as August 1st. And the rules state, quote, "If only one candidate declares their intent to seek the nomination and meets party and legal requirements, voting is expected to begin on August 1st. If more than one candidate declares their intent to seek nomination and meets the party and legal requirements, voting will begin at a date to be determined by the DNC and DNCC chairs," end quote. And from what I understand, this means, there will be a runoff between the top two candidates. And whoever the party nominee is then has a deadline of August 7th to name their running mate. So everything needs to be done basically within the next couple of days into the next week. And the DNC itself is just going to be like a celebratory and ceremonial event. And this whole breakdown is posted on Jamie Harrison's X account for anyone who wants to check it out. And I mean, I guess you can say it was kind of similar with the RNC. You know, it was mostly just a celebration for Trump. But isn't that just because the candidates who were going up against Trump basically withdrew like long before the RNC, and he was the only candidate on the ticket? But that isn't necessarily the case with the Democrats until they instituted this new ruling all of a sudden. So unless I'm missing something here, it sounds to me like somebody has until tomorrow to step up and challenge Kamala. Otherwise, she's the official nominee.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way that I understand it. But I also understand that the rules don't apply to the left. They do whatever the fuck they want. There's all these states we've talked about previously that really aren't supposed to change the ballot at this point unless Biden like died, but they're still doing it. Like they find a workaround. They do whatever the hell they want because they always, they always get away with it. And so like until the DNC is over and the delegates have rubber stamped it, I'll be over here holding my breath. But let's just say, like, this is right. And like, she is the one. I feel like that's even more fucking scary because it's like, then that means who really is running our country? Like, there really isn't someone in the wings, like, standing by to swoop in. Like, it's just terrifying that Kamala Harris could be in charge of our country. Like, how did this happen? I mean, this is so bad.
Yeah. And like we mentioned on Wednesday, that Tennessee Rep. Andy Ogles filed impeachment articles against Kamala on Tuesday for what he's calling extraordinary incompetence in the execution of her duties and responsibilities related to immigration. And then yesterday, the House passed a resolution condemning her as Biden's failed border czar. And this measure was passed 220 to 196, with all Republicans and 6 Democrats voting for it. And the resolution was introduced by House GOP Chair Elise Stefanik, and she said, quote, Kamala Harris failed as border czar, leading to violent crimes, rapes, and murders of innocent Americans. We will hold her and the far left Democrats accountable, end quote. Now, with Congress's record, I doubt there's going to be any accountability, but what completely blows my mind is how the MSM is trying to change the narrative, and they're saying that Kamala was never the border czar in the first place. And as reported by the Washington Times, there are multiple news outlets like Time Magazine, USA Today, Axios, PolitiFact. They're all now doing fact check articles claiming that Kamala was never put in charge of the border. PolitiFact tried to explain it by saying that border security and management is the job of the DHS, not the vice president. And there's no actual job title called border czar, so therefore she can't possibly be responsible for the border. Stephanie, is this not like with Fauci claiming he never said face masks were essential for stopping COVID? Like, what the fuck? This is such gaslighting bullshit. On Wednesday, KJP told reporters that congressional Republicans and Trump are to blame for the border crisis, not Kamala. And she said,
Trump's fault, just
oh, I know. I know. And here's what she said. She said, quote, she was supposed to be doing root causes, dealing with diplomacy. Diplomacy. That's what her job was supposed to be, end quote. Okay, so let's take a look at the definition of diplomacy. And my favorite definition comes from National Geographic, and it says, quote, diplomacy is the art and science of maintaining peaceful relationships between nations, groups, or individuals. Often, diplomacy refers to representatives of different groups discussing issues such as conflict, trade, the environment, technology, or maintaining security. Okay, Stephanie, would you consider it diplomacy to be given a task involving root causes of immigration issues and only visit the border once in 4 years?
Yeah, it's total bullshit. Give me one thing she changed as like being the diplomat for the border. Like, this is bullshit.
Right. Yeah. Would you call it an act of diplomacy to never have a single conversation or meeting with the former Border Patrol chief who was in office for 2 years during her VP tenure, or even with the current Border Patrol chief who's been in office since July 2023 and hasn't met or spoken with Kamala? Like, would you call that diplomacy?
Nope.
No, exactly. And while Kamala may not have held the official title of border czar, she was most definitely appointed by Biden to handle the fucking border. In fact, let's listen to this clip of him saying so back in March of 2021.
taking on the border crisis today and putting Vice President Kamala Harris in charge.
Federal facilities being overwhelmed by the number of unaccompanied minors arriving each and every day. Our DC Bureau Chief Ben Kennedy joins us live with more. Ben.
Well, Nicole, this is a key assignment for Vice President Harris. It's a bit of an uphill battle. She admits it'll not be easy, but she says it is so important.
But the vice president's agreed.
Agreed to be the point person on immigration.
Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job.
There's no question that this is a challenging situation.
The situation centers around the biggest surge in migrants to cross the U.S.-Mexico border in 20 years. Facilities are overflowing with people. Many are children.
Children should be moving more quickly through those facilities. That is what our policy central focus is right now.
The Biden administration has lost control of the southern border.
But the White House says not true and blames the previous administration.
So this new surge we're dealing with now started with the last administration, but it's our responsibility to deal with it humanely.
The VP is tasked to stem the influx of migrants, deal with the root cause driving them to the U.S., and to lead diplomatic efforts.
I look forward to engaging in diplomacy with government, with private sector, with civil society, and the leaders of each in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras.
Yeah.
Vice President Harris
Don't think she did any of those things.
No, she definitely didn't. And this is so stupid because it's simply a case of like tomato. So like the mainstream media might not have called her the border czar, but instead like the point person, like they said it in that clip that you played. I have a clip I'm going to play that I heard this morning on the Morning Wire that once again, like shows that it's just, they didn't call her the border czar. It was point person. Listen to this.
She is now the point person on immigration.
Vice President Harris is now the Biden administration's point person
To oversee his administration's efforts to stem the flow of migrants.
Kamala Harris, the point person on immigration.
The point person and the effort to stop the flow of migrants.
And Kamala Harris will lead the response to the border challenge.
Okay, so she was the point person to stop the flow of migrants at the border. Tara, did the flow stop? Because I thought we just had the largest number of illegals in December, like in history. So it's like, and if that doesn't prove the media is reading a script given to them, then I don't know what will. So, I mean, whatever, like if they want to play this game that she wasn't the border czar, but she was the point person in charge of root causes, then okay, let's go with that. Clearly, she didn't do her job because not only do we have the largest number of illegal border crossings in history, but we also have a minimum of 80,000 children missing now. And now Guatemala, which was one of those countries that she was supposed to look at the root causes, well, Guatemala's government is accusing the Biden-Harris administration of human trafficking children for sex slavery. So she can play these gaslighting word games, but it doesn't change the fact that this administration has let human trafficking and child slavery happen, and they funded it with our tax dollars. So maybe a better question to ask her is why she doesn't want to be associated with the border. Does that mean she's admitting that it's a failure at best and treason at worst? And like, what's her plan for the border moving forward? We don't know. But we sure as hell know what Trump's going to do. He laid out his entire deportation plan by working with local law enforcement to locate illegals. He's decided to label the cartels terrorist organizations. Oh, and he's going to give the death penalty to sex traffickers. And so it had me thinking, like, we really don't know anything about Kamala's views or plans for things that actually matter, like the economy, inflation, national security. She hasn't told us her plan because she doesn't fucking have one. So we have to assume that it's just going to be more of the same from the past 4 years. And Tara, like, is that not completely terrifying? We can't have another 4 years like this.
Oh, Stephanie, it's going to be way worse. But before I get into that, I have to tell you what just happened. So I saved both of those clips I just played in a playlist on my YouTube. And when I went to play the clip of Biden, naming her the border czar, the clip from Kamala's page about the phone call with the Bidens, it's gone. It's now unavailable. Like they pulled
censored
it off her account. Yeah. And I'm so glad that we played the clip in the beginning of this episode before it got erased from my fucking YouTube.
Well, get ready because they're going to be censoring everything. Our YouTube's probably going to get banned.
Oh, I'm
Like
sure.
they are going to censor everything like crazy.
Yeah, I like just like, wow, okay. Well, going back to what you were saying, like it is terrifying and it's only gonna get worse. And I want to play a clip from that interview that Tucker did with Ben Carson, because here's what Ben Carson had to say about it.
What do you think would happen if Kamala Harris got elected president?
I think we would continue to move in a very leftist direction. I mean, she was the most radical left-wing member of the Senate. She was even to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was a co-sponsor of the Green New Energy deal. She wants Medicaid for everybody, mandatory, no private insurance. As the DA, she was the one who basically didn't want to punish people who were guilty of horrendous crimes and repeat offenders. And she wanted open borders and all the things that we see happening. You can put those on steroids if she becomes the president. And I hope people will go back and look at her record. Don't just listen to pleasant words that will be interspersed with ridiculous laughter, but go back and actually look at what she did and what she has said. And I think people will remember why she got no traction at all when she was running for president.
Yeah, go back and look at her records before they're all fucking gone, okay? Because this is crazy. And like, okay, so he mentioned how she was co-sponsor of the new green energy deal, right? And if we remember when she previously ran for president, she talked about a 10 trillion dollar climate change plan and how she wants to make sure we have 100% carbon neutral electricity within 6 years. And she's also been totally vocal about government control over what we eat and specifically getting rid of meat. And so I found this article in the Washington Times that was talking about how during a town hall meeting in 2020, when she was asked about supporting dietary changes to the food pyramid and reducing red meat, she was completely in support of it. And at the time she stated, quote, "As a nation, we actually have to have at a real priority the highest level of government around what we eat," end quote. So, Stephanie, the highest level of government dictating what we eat. Like, as dangerous as Biden was, I think Kamala is worse because her ambitions are way more extreme than Biden's. But instead of being an old man and using hateful and like angry rhetoric, she disguises it all with the laughter and the smiles and this basically like ditzy sorority girl attitude. And I mean, smart people don't buy it, but a lot of people fucking do.
Yeah, and this whole part is really scary, especially with the episode we have coming out tomorrow where we're talking about the bird flu and the meat industry. Like with her as president, I mean, this for sure could put us in a situation where we have massive food security issues. So, I mean, it's really dangerous and you're right. Like people don't realize that because she's smiling and giggling and acting all ditzy. They don't know just how extreme things are going to get under her.
Right. And let's talk about Project 2025, right? Because as we know, that's one of the most triggering topics for the left. And Kamala is using that to her advantage. So, according to the Daily Signal, one of Kamala's campaign officials admitted on Wednesday that she is deliberately misleading voters about Project 2025. This was originally reported by CNN, of all outlets, while they were doing a fact check article accusing Kamala of making false claims about it. And instead of proving the allegations false, it was instead revealed by CNN reporter Daniel Dale that, quote, "A Harris campaign official said the campaign has made a deliberate decision to brand all of Trump's policies as Project 2025 since they believe it has stuck with the voters," end quote. And again, I'm shocked this is coming from CNN, but they referred to comments that Kamala made at her first campaign rally on Tuesday when she was talking about Project 2025. And she said, quote, when you read it, you will see Donald Trump intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to give tax breaks to billionaires and big corporations and make working families foot the bill. They intend to end the Affordable Care Act and take us back then to a time when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions, end quote. And then I don't know if this is still there since they're fucking wiping her page clean, but yesterday I went on the Kamala HQ page on X, and there's a post with a picture of her standing in front of an American flag, and it says, a message for Trump and his Project 2025. We are not going back. So apparently CNN actually did the work and read Project 2025's mandate for leadership policy recommendations. And they concluded, quote, one of Harris's claims about Project 2025 is false, while another is misleading. The Project 2025 document does not show that Trump intends to cut Social Security. The document barely discusses Social Security at all and does not propose cuts to the program. In addition, contrary to Harris's suggestion, Project 2025 does not call to end the Affordable Care Act or eliminate its protections for people with pre-existing conditions, end quote. Stephanie, even USA Today recently had an article stating that Project 2025 is not a plan from Trump, and they backed Trump's claim that he doesn't agree with the agenda. And here's what they wrote. The article says, quote, Project 2025 is a political playbook created by the Heritage Foundation and dozens of other conservative groups, not Trump, who disagrees with elements of the effort, end quote. And again, these articles are coming from left-leaning MSM outlets.
You know, this is why I'm leery about like anything happening according to plan. Like, I feel like something's going to happen at the DNC because the only way super left, USA Today and CNN are going to be calling out Kamala and actually like favorably talking about Trump is if they know someone else is going to step up and replace her at the DNC. Like, I can't imagine any other scenario where they would actually do the right thing because they haven't done the right thing in years and years and years. So I don't know. It just seems a little fishy. But if they're admitting that Project 2025 isn't Trump's, then why aren't they talking about Project 27 or Project 47, which is Trump's? And it's like maybe they're leaving that part out because they know it's great and they know that it would win over voters and they can't have that. So it's like, if they truly wanted to do the right thing, they'd give the American people the full picture and highlight Project 47 and what it entails. But I still think something's up. The mainstream media, they take orders from the elite. So something's up.
Yeah, it's just so many mixed messages right now. But the bottom line is like people have to take a look at the facts and what's truly best for the American people and not the narrative that's being fed to us by shady politicians and the MSM because it's all bullshit and it's just a grasp for control. Like they do not have our best interest in mind. They do not give a fuck about America. Their goal is to line their own pockets and accumulate power and control. And one of the things that Ben Carson was talking about in his interview with Tucker was how the MSM narrative with Kamala has nothing to do with policy. It's basically just about promoting her gender and race and personality, right? And so Tucker asked him if he thought Kamala could win. And Carson said, absolutely. And like this election is going to be a great test of the power of the media to take someone like Kamala, who's been like universally disliked, and transform her into a godlike figure, which is exactly what they're trying to do. I mean, look at how much support she's gotten from the MSM and the left in less than a week when her poll numbers were just as bad as Biden's before he dropped out of the race. Like Carson said, the real test is whether or not the American people are smart enough to see through what's happening. And he was so optimistic and said, he believes that we are. And like, I really hope he's right and that people will focus on the policies that are best for America and not on the rhetoric being spewed by the media. And like, there's times where I get so stressed out and upset reading about all the shit that's being purposefully done by the left to destroy our country. And it's so disheartening and overwhelmingly evil that sometimes I'm like, why do we bother? Right. I mean, we put a tremendous amount of work and effort into the podcast. And not only is it time consuming, but we've both expressed how it sometimes negatively affects our mental state. And I often wonder, like, are we even making a difference with the podcast? So, last night I was making notes in preparation for this episode, and my husband walks into the room, and I kind of went on a rant about how angry I am at the way the MSM is portraying Kamala. And he said to me, he said, "You can't change the world, but you can influence it." And he sounded so sincere that it made me laugh, like in a good way, because that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, right? We're trying to be positive and an inspiring influence for getting people to open their eyes to the truth. And then early this morning, when I was listening to Tucker's interview, it also reinforced this. And it reminded me of why we started this podcast in the first place and why we have to continue to speak out. So I want to play a short clip of what Carson said.
We're in a situation now. I think we're in a situation now where our society, to a large degree, actually thinks logically and understands the difference between right and wrong and good and evil. But we have people who are afraid. They're afraid to express their ideals because of the punishment, because of cancellation, because somebody might call them a bad name, because somebody might make life difficult for their family. But what we have to recognize is when you stand up for what you believe in, you give license and encouragement for others to do the same thing. And remember, you cannot be the land of the free if you're not the home of the brave.
And I really like
Well,
that.
I liked it too. I love him. And I feel like I needed to hear that because today I was thinking the same thing, Tara. I was like, why the fuck are we even doing this? Like, why are we doing this? Does it even matter? Because I mean, you look at like all these people out there that are just like, oh, she's a woman, so I'm going to vote for her, and not even paying attention to what's happening. So sometimes I feel like I'm talking to a brick wall and like nobody cares. No one's paying attention. But, that's not true. Like, I think a lot more people are paying attention and are awake to all of this than we realize. And I think it's been a huge shift since 2020. And just because we don't always see that in the media doesn't mean anything. I mean, just look at our own life. Do you know anyone that's like cheering for Kamala? No, like
Yeah,
I
I know.
don't. I literally don't
No.
know one single person.
Yeah, and I really hope that people open their eyes and we're making an impact. And so we're going to switch gears now and we're going to talk about a few other things that happened since our last episode on Wednesday. And, Biden gave his big dramatic speech Wednesday night. And if you missed it, like, good for you, because it's honestly not even worth talking about. It was the usual mumble jumble of nonsense words and old man ranting. And I will summarize it in a few words by saying, like, there was no actual explanation for the real reason why he's withdrawing from the race. And he actually said he believes he merits a second term, but he decided to sacrifice his personal ambitions for the sake of saving democracy. And in true Biden fashion, he made the address all about himself and reiterated his usual tall tales and outright lies about his accomplishments as president, including actually stating that he's the first US president this century to not have the United States involved at war anywhere in the world, and that border crossings are lower today than when Trump was in office. And it's like, I don't know whether to be infuriated or whether to just laugh, because the whole thing was ridiculous and delusional and full of lies.
And did you notice he had like such a big tan? Like he was like super tan. And I'm like, were you just like at the beach? Like, is that why we couldn't see you for days? Like, what the fuck? But talk about a long overdue, Oval Office address where we finally get a video of him like confirming that he's alive and actually dropping out. But right before this happened, right before the Oval Office address, NORAD, which is the North American Aerospace Defense Command, said that it sent out fighter jets to intercept two Russian 95 Bear bombers and two Chinese H-6 bombers off the coast of Alaska. So this caught my attention because not a lot of people are reporting on it, but I saw an article on Fox News that said that NORAD gave a press release saying the agency confirmed that it detected, tracked, and intercepted 2 Russian Tu-95 and 2 PRC-H-6 military aircraft operating in the Alaska Air Defense Identification Zone on July 24th. And NORAD fighter jets from the United States and Canada conducted the interception. So I don't know, like, I think this is pretty significant because this is the first time that China and Russia have flown joint bomber patrol off the coast of Alaska. And of course, it's all happening at a time when we have a president who clearly is not fit for office. He's dropping out of the race, and we have Cackle's Kamala making a mockery of our voting process. And then on TikTok, like, I follow all these accounts that have those trackers where you can track our airspace. And they were all going nuts, saying that almost the entire East and West Coast were blocked from flights, as well as the DC area. And they said that this is unusual and there must be something going on, like a training exercise. And then you had people all over DC posting all these pictures of everything being fenced off and barricaded. Then there was a video of a woman that says she goes past Mar-a-Lago every single day to and from work, and that had barricades. And everyone's saying, like, it's just unusual, like the level in which all these things are happening. And then, you know, an F-35B Lightning II fighter jet was also videoed hovering over the Capitol. And so it's like, is this all just because of Netanyahu's visit? Is it like because the Russian and China bombers were off the coast of Alaska? Like, whatever it is, it has me really worried. And just think about it. Like, if you were an enemy of the US, wouldn't you capitalize on this time when no one seems to be competent or in charge? And so it's just like, what are they not telling us? And then again, it reinforces like Kamala is not ready to handle issues like this that can lead to a world war.
Oh, absolutely not. She'd just be up there laughing. And it's like, that's the question, though. What are they not telling us? Because according to NORAD, there is no threat. And they're just going to continue to, quote, monitor competitor activity near North America and meet presence with presence, end quote. Which is interesting considering that just a few months ago in March, U.S. Northern Command and NORAD Chief General Gregory Goulot told Congress that China pushing further into the Arctic region was, quote, a very big concern of mine, end quote.
Yeah, like I just feel like there's so much that is escalating that they're not telling us just because of the political landscape right now. And like with all of that going on, Netanyahu comes here and then the left gets all riled up to the point that DC is totally vandalized. Like these pro-Hamas people spray painted everything, completely destroyed the city. How the fuck are they not arrested? Like, I'm sorry, but when you go beyond protesting and you start vandalizing historical monuments, you should be arrested. And it's just like, as much as I can't stand these idiots, I also think that the timing of his visit was not the best. Like, we have enough shit going on right now. And then he comes here and he's asking for more money. And I don't think anyone in America right now wants to go to war and wants to like start a war with Iran because we know that will lead us into World War III. And it's just like, how about America just takes care of America for once? But like, as much as I don't want war, I will never side with these lunatics destroying these historical monuments. They need to be jailed. Oh, and the monuments that they were spray painting, some of them said Hamas is coming. And then they had the upside down triangle, which like is a marker, like a target. So like that's terrifying.
Oh, I know.
But
And
nothing
like,
happened.
no. And did you see what they did to the Watergate Hotel where Netanyahu was staying?
Yes.
Yeah. So a group of this, I guess the Palestinian Youth Movement posted a video on their Instagram account, and reportedly it was sent to them by an anonymous source, but it shows like a bunch of maggots and crickets and other disgusting bugs being let loose inside the hotel and like fire alarms being set off on multiple floors for over 30 minutes. And I watched the video. It's pretty disgusting. And you hear like Palestinian rap music in the background, and the video is panning to a table in a conference room that's clearly like supposed to be used by Netanyahu for meetings, because you can see an Israeli flag and an American flag in the background, and there's like a large conference table with a white tablecloth on it. And it's like they just dumped a bunch of maggots and bugs and shit on the table. And there's also clips of like crickets and beetles and I don't know what other insects like scurrying across the carpets in the hotel and on the marble floors. And like, I'm not talking a few bugs, I'm talking like a shit ton of insects all over the place. And the Post states, quote, Palestinian protester manufactured chaos at the Watergate Hotel last night so that Netanyahu, Israeli Mossad agents, and the Secret Service had no peace as they continue to terrorize our people, end quote. And then, like, the hotel had to clean all this shit up and issue a statement about sanitizing the property and how they're open for business. And Stephanie, I'm just so sick of these fucking protesters getting away with this shit. Like, whatever your stance is on this war, if you want to protest, fine, fucking protest. But this shit with vandalizing historical monuments and statues and destroying property and getting violent with the cops, like, this is bullshit. This isn't protesting. It's an excuse for sheer criminal behavior. And there were literally hundreds of people involved in these acts of vandalism, but only 9 people get arrested. Like, what the fuck? And I'm reading this article in The Blaze, and they're saying, you know, the US Park Service is justifying this by saying they only had 29 officers to deploy to Columbus Circle, which also blows my mind because it's well known in advance that this big protest is going to take place. And I'm not blaming Park Police because it's clear they have a staffing problem and lack of resources, like many police departments do. I'm blaming the fucking Biden admin, or should I be calling it the Harris admin now? Like, deploy the National Guard, deploy the Capitol Police, provide some fucking resources. Like, there should have been a show of force and zero tolerance for these assholes vandalizing and destroying historical monuments and attacking cops. Because again, protesting is one thing, but rioting and committing crimes is another. And this to me is just another clear sign from our government that they condone everything that's happening. And to those fucks who took down the American flags that were flying outside of Union Station and burned them and replaced them with Palestinian flags and the chance of Hamas is coming, all you motherfuckers should be rounded up and sent to Palestine and never allowed back in our country. Like, fuck going to jail. They should be fucking deported. I am so sick of this shit. But it's
I
like,
agree. Deport them to fucking Palestine. Like, let them
yes.
go over there because most of them are part of the freaking rainbow alphabet community and would be murdered. So it's like maybe they need a wake up call that what they're supporting they would never tolerate these people. Like, Hamas would never tolerate these leftist college students.
Oh, fuck no.
You know, they'd be done.
Exactly. And it's like, I just, somebody fucking have some accountability. I'm so sick of it. But like, going back to what we were talking about earlier, we need to stay committed to pushing back against all these bullshit narratives and continuing to expose the lies. And that's what we're going to continue to do with this podcast.
Yeah, with that being said, everyone listening that enjoys the podcast and the updates, make sure you click the follow button to the podcast so that way you can see like all the latest episodes, because the information is coming out so quickly and we're trying to stay on top of it and keep everyone notified. And then we need your help with reviews. So on Spotify, you just literally just click the 5-star rating. And then on Apple, you can do the same thing and just leave a review, because we have these leftist lunatics coming for us. And so we just need more reviews to counter that. So it's free. It only takes a minute, and it's a really easy way that you can support the show.
Yes. And before we go, we also just want to announce that we have a special episode airing this weekend. Stephanie alluded to it earlier. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. It's a very eye-opening interview that we recently did with Glenda Baleo. She's an independent farmer rancher who gives us an insider breakdown on all the ways our federal government is trying to take away our food independence and control our food supply. And she sheds light on things we all need to be paying attention to and preparing for. So make sure you guys tune in tomorrow.
Going to be a good one. All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you back here tomorrow.